You know what is very strange? It feels very strange to me, and a little bit scary. Is that the future of this republic? One can make the argument rests on what happens here in Georgia, January 5th. That's the date of the double senatorial race runoff. That is a result of no candidate among the two Democratic challengers and the two Republican incumbents. No particular candidate in either of those races got 50% plus one vote, which is what's required here in Georgia to win an election. Consequently, you have the two runoffs, and of the two, I think one of the more important is the one between Jon Ossoff, the Democrat, who is trying to unseat Republican Senator David Perdue. The other race between Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed when Georgia's sitting senator retired because of health reasons. Kelly Loeffler was appointed by the governor here. And her opponent, Reverend, what the hell is his name? Come on, Mike. It'll come to me in a second. That race is also important, and I think her challenger is going to defeat her. Kelly Loeffler is known in Atlanta for being a very rich white woman whose husband is the head of the New York Stock Exchange. She is, like a lot of Republican office holders, a liar and a cheat. And I think the Reverend Warnock, Raphael Warnock, is the person running against her. I think he's made that abundantly clear. David Perdue, also being a typical Republican office holder, is a liar and a cheat. And I think investigations by the Senate Ethics Committee also proved his duplicity and the fact that he is a liar and a cheat. Both of these Republicans, when they got a private briefing about, this is back in March, I believe, about how serious this COVID-19 pandemic was going to be in this country, and the resultant damage that was going to occur to certain industries, both of these Republican sitting senators immediately, with this inside information, started dumping millions of dollars worth of stock in companies that were obviously going to fail, and immediately started buying stock in companies that were going to flourish as a result of the pandemic. And the fact that they did this with inside information is the part that's disgusting. Now, neither one of them was found to have done anything wrong by the Republican-controlled Senate so-called ethics committee. Don't laugh. Yeah, there is such a thing. An ethics committee in the Senate, run by one of the minions of the evil son of a bitch, the turtle, Mitch McConnell. But anyway, I digress. What happens in the United States for the next 4 years and possibly beyond depends on what happens in this election that is scheduled to occur on Tuesday, the 5th of January here in Georgia. Jon Ossoff, the one running against David Perdue, is running on a straightforward message. And his message has the virtue of being not just largely true, but it's also a message we've already learned to be true from bitter experience. And Greg Sargent, writing in the Washington Post, brings this up today in his column. He writes, if Republicans win one or both of these two runoffs, according to Jon Ossoff, continued Republican control of the Senate will mean relentless obstruction of Joe Biden's agenda by this horrible son of a bitch, Mitch McConnell. And that means a much more grueling economic recovery, if one can occur at all, a poorly coordinated response, if a response can be generated at all to the coronavirus's latest rampages, And it's also going to be a death stroke for popular policies such as expanded health care and investment in infrastructure that we desperately need. Let me ask you something. Have you ridden the nation's interstates lately? Any in your state, in your city, bypassing your city, whatever it is? Have you noticed the horrible condition of the roads? No, seriously. Now, in some areas, maybe you have perfectly smooth highways and nothing's wrong. But in the travels that I have made recently in in South Carolina, in Georgia, and Florida, it's a mess. These interstate highways need attention. And that's just the highways. What about the bridges? What about the dams? What about these open pools of disease and death that contain hog swill and feces all over North Carolina? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The condition of our dams, railroad beds. Have you been into a public school lately? So there's an enormous amount of infrastructure work that needs to be done. And it would be done obviously with public money, with tax money, but look at the jobs that would be generated. Oh my God. And these are not jobs, no offense to people working at Starbucks, but these are not jobs where you become a barista. These are jobs where your skill in the building trades is put to use. But it depends on who's running the Senate, Republicans or Democrats, Biden or this ugly turtle. So in short, unless Democrats win both of these runoffs coming up January 5th, both of them, and therefore gain Senate control, it's going to mean this: more economic misery, more illness and death, diminished prospects for long-term national revival, all of that. And I simply cannot get my mind around why this twisted little pervert from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, would like to continue those destructive policies in order to embarrass Biden. I mean, they served together in the Senate, Biden and McConnell. They know each other. Why would McConnell continue to be the miserable little rat fucker that he is? I think the answer is because he can be. You talk about somebody who is absolutely drunk on power. It's a contest between McConnell and the orange bastard. Anyway, as Greg Sargent points out in the Post, we know this. If he remains majority leader, McConnell will do everything he can to cripple the Biden presidency by saddling Biden with the terrible politics of a miserable recovery. And we saw him do that for years, mostly as minority leader during the last Democratic presidency. McConnell should be removed. He really should. I mean, when you have people in your legislative body who are so destructive to the economic and political and yes, emotional health of your country, what are you supposed to do? Let the son of a bitch continue to destroy one person, have this much effect on 330 million of us? I mean, at what point do we, the citizens of the United States, wake up to the fact that we have a political system that is crumbling and needs some structural changes to the same degree that our roads and bridges and dams and schools need structural changes? There's too much power vested in the hands of individuals in this country, in our political system. There just is. This gets me back to the idea of a parliamentary system, sort of the same system that you have in the UK or Canada or other English-speaking countries, and some countries on the continent of Africa that have parliamentary systems of government. We don't, do we? Where was I? So does all of this, all this potential disaster or potential salvation, does it matter to the two outcomes here in Georgia? Oh, dear God, does it ever. John Ossoff is quoted in Greg Sargent's column as saying, quote, if McConnell controls the Senate, he's going to block the kind of relief package that we need. And that means not just short-term direct economic relief, but also the kind of infrastructure, jobs, clean energy program necessary to support long-term recovery. End quote, Jon Ossoff. And if you live here in Georgia, as I do, and have been watching the political ads on television here, they're astonishing. Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff are issue-oriented. In their political ads, that's what they talk about, issues. Whereas this crazy Loeffler and Perdue, their ads are all about dark conspiratorial bullshit that Ossoff's campaign is being financed by terrorist money, and Reverend Warnock supports black power advocates who want to burn America to the ground. It's incredible to watch these ads. Kelly Loeffler, who is a rich white, well, she's not suburban, she lives in Atlanta, a rich white woman who is doing everything in her power, not just to maintain rich white people control, but also to destroy utterly any effort to bring any kind of equality of opportunity to people who are not white in the United States. It's astonishing to watch. Now, she would never admit that in her political ads. They had the requisite person of color or two in the background, you know, at a picnic or something. She's even somehow managed to convince a couple of people of color to talk about her positively in her ads, some of her ads. It's painful to watch somebody of color advocating for a candidate of no color who is an absolute destroyer of any opportunity that person of color might gain through the election of Kelly Loeffler's opponent, Reverend Warnock. It's just... Ossoff added this in his conversation with Greg Sargent, quote, "This paralysis of our government in the midst of a crisis is untenable. People are suffering and they want government to work." End quote. I mean, how simple a message is that? Why does that message not transcend all this racist, sick bullshit that has been pumped into the body politic by Donald Trump and by Republicans for the past 35 to 40 years? Why is that simple message now, especially now? We desperately need to work together. We need to spend money, just mountains of money, to get this economy running again, to get the country back on its feet. Why is that message not the only message out there? Well, you probably know the answer as well as I do. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.